Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. Can you kindly be up on your feet as the speaker and the chair take their seats? Kindly put your phones on silent. Thank you.
Place it. Thank you. President of the Academy, past presidents of the Academy, vice presidents of the Academy, fellows, your excellencies, distinguished guests, students, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of fellows of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, you are all warmly welcome to day 3 of the Academy's 4-day event marking its 66th anniversary, which is also anniversary celebrating the Founders' Day. It is my pleasure to also mention that the program is being streamed live via Zoom, Facebook, and on the Academy's YouTube page. So on this note, we also take the opportunity to welcome all those who have joined us online. The theme for this anniversary, titled Political Transitions, Lessons and the Way Forward, is being addressed, as we saw yesterday, by a number of distinguished scholars. And we will have day 2 of the symposia shortly. But before then, permit me to kindly introduce to you the chairperson for this event, who will then introduce the speaker. I'll read a brief bio sketch of our chair. Our chair is a retired professor at the University of Ghana. He has taught and trained many students in several African countries, mentioning only Nigeria, Kenya, and also here in Ghana for many years. He has worked and published extensively in his area of scholarly research, namely on the environment and biodiversity, and has chaired many high-profile local and international meetings and events on the environment and biodiversity. Among others, he's a founding bureau member and former vice chair representing Africa on the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, IPBES. He has also chaired the steering committee of the International Partnership for the Setoyama Initiative, which is a joint UNU and the Ministry of Japan initiative since establishment in 2010. He also chairs the trusteeship board of the AROCHA Ghana, which is an environmental organization that advocates for nature and its conservation. Our chair has received several awards. I will mention only the 2014 International Maidori Prize for Biodiversity and the John C. Phillips Memorial Medal for 2020, the highest global conservation award of the UN. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished audience, let's welcome Professor Alfred Appel Oteng-Yeboah.
The President of the Academy, past presidents, Vice President, Arts Section, Fellows, Excellencies, invited guests, the media, students, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very grateful to the Honorary Secretary for the introduction. So I want to welcome everyone to this lecture. But before I introduce the distinguished speaker, I want to inform you that today's lecture marks the third day of the Academy's 2025 Founders Day week under the theme Navigating Political Transitions in Ghana, Issues and Lessons. The first day included the presidential address and the induction of newly elected fellows into the fellowship of the Academy. The President of the Academy reflected on the theme by indicating the need for continuity in transitions for national development. The second, which was yesterday, opened the two-day symposium under the sub-theme 1, Architecture of Political Transitions. The topic discussed was presidential transition, comparing policies from Ghana and other jurisdictions. Honorary Osei Mensah-Bonsu addressed this using comparative information from Ghana, Kenya, Singapore, South Africa, and the United States of America. And he presented a picture of some gaps in the Constitution, our Constitution, and the need to address them when revising future presidential transition documents. It is the third day today, ladies and gentlemen, and the lecture will touch on the second sub-theme, political transitions, lessons, and the way forward. The topic will be addressed here, the topic to be addressed here is pathways to peaceful political transitions, deepening trust, practice, and bipartisanship. I would now like to introduce our speaker for this evening. The speaker is Dr. Rosina K. Foli, a senior lecturer at the Department of Political Science, University of Ghana. Dr. Rosina Foli is a public policy scholar whose work bridges political science, social policy, and democratic governance. She holds a BSc in public policy from the University of Saskatchewan in Canada, where her research focused on transnational action and anti-poverty policy in Ghana. Her academic journey also includes an MPhil in political science and a BA degree in political science with philosophy from the University of Ghana, as well as an international training in public administration at Georgia College and State University. Rosina's research interests span decision-making, social protection, global governance, and democratic development. She has published extensively in leading journals such as African Affairs, Global Social Policy, Policy in Society, and Journal of International and Cooperative and Comparative Social Policy. Her recent works explore political transitions, gender representation, and the additional dimension of policy reform in Africa. She is co-editor of the forthcoming volume on post-COVID social policy in sub-Saharan Africa, and an author of a chapter in an edited book on Ghana's political transitions. Beyond academia, Dr. Foli has contributed to policy research with institutions like IDEG and the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, and collaborates internationally on welfare regimes and research ethics. She has served as a reviewer for the Third World Quarterly and Global Social Policy, and regularly presents at international conferences, including the Canadian Association of African Studies. Rosina is passionate about strengthening democratic institutions and advancing inclusive governance through research, teaching, and policy engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the greatest pleasure to present to you our speaker this evening, Dr. Rosina Foli.
Thank you so much, Prof. Chair, Professor Alfred Oteng-Yeboah, the Vice President, Sciences Section of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, the President of the Academy, Emerita Prof. Isabella Kwanchi, past Presidents of the Academy, Fellows of the Academy, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen of the media, students, good evening. I'm happy to be here today. And if you were here yesterday, we had a very interesting discussion yesterday on political transitions. And so today I'm going to contribute to that discussion. And to contribute to this discussion, I will start off by looking at what democratic transitions are. I will look at Ghana's journey so far, talk a little bit about the various transitions that we've had. Then I will zoom in on the my topic for today, which is the pathways for having peaceful transitions, building trust, practice, and bipartisanship. I would like to acknowledge this evening my professor, Professor Joseph I, who has mentored me from BA Political Science, MPhil Political Science, throughout to this level. Thank you so much, Prof. And other colleagues have shared this, some of my discussions and thoughts on this with at the department. So let's start off by looking at what political transitions are. So when we talk of political transitions, it involves a process of change in a country's leadership or system. So this process of change can be a change in the system, which is what we had when we founded the Fourth Republic, which is between 1992 and 1993. That is a process of change in the political system from a military dictatorship to a democratic system. That is also political transition. Then within the Fourth Republic, we have had change in the political leadership from one group of leaders, either from different parties or from within the same party to the other, to another group. And that is political transitions also. So when we talk of political transitions then, we can conceptualize it as a regime change, one from military rule to a democratic rule, or we can look at it as a transfer of power from one group of leaders to another group of leaders. Ghana's democratic journey has been a very interesting one. From 1992, when we had the founding elections, and when we inaugurated the Fourth Republic in 1993, at that moment, when we were having that major transition, or the founding transition, a lot of people had doubts on whether Ghana could make it this far. Some people were even suspicious of the leader at the time. They were not sure if Rawlings, the former former president, will be willing to adhere to the democratic norms. They weren't too sure. But we had the inauguration of the Fourth Republic in 1993, and we've had several changes along the way, and we are over 3 decades old in this process of democratization. So when we look at the democratic journey of Ghana then, and when we look at it from the theoretical framework of democratic consolidation and institutional strengthening, then we'll say that Ghana's democracy has been consolidated when we look first at the minimalist perspective of democratic consolidation, which looks basically at procedural elections and how we change over from one government to the other. From that perspective, we have consolidated. That is based on Huntington's 2-10-over test. We have had several changes. So Ghana's democracy is consolidated. But when we move from the minimalist perspective of democratic consolidation and we look at the maximalist perspective of democratic consolidation, which says that it gets to a time when democracy becomes the only game in town. When we say democracy becomes the only game in town, it means that political actors and citizens alike accept the democratic norms, institutions, and procedures as the standard. It involves behavioral, attitudinal, and constitutional internalization of democratic values. So we won't have things like if there is a change in government, then others are struggling to go and take over public toilets or toll booths, for instance, because we have so imbibed the democratic norms that we allow it to work. That is the maximalist conception of democratic consolidation. And this perspective links with institutional strengthening, because when we allow the institutions to work, when we imbibe democratic norms and internalize the Constitution, the basic tenets of democracy, then it means that we allow the institutions to function as we expect them to function. And in policy studies, most institutions, or institutions generally, are strengthened when they are enforced. So when we talk of institutions, not only the buildings or structures, but we also look at the rules of the game. So when we enforce the rules of the game, and we continue to enforce it, it becomes part of us, and so we strengthen the institutions. We all know that if you are not supposed to climb from here, and you climb the first time and you are punished, you climb the second time, you are punished, the third time you would want to climb it, you will turn around, you ask yourself if you'd want to climb it to be punished again. And so institutions in that sense shape our behavior and leads us on certain paths. So we have had significant progress in terms of the minimalist and the maximalist perspective of democratic consolidation. Yet challenges persist. We have weak internalization of democratic norms, and we have electoral tensions whenever it's election. Some are scared, others travel out of the country. Investors decide not to invest yet. They hold on to their investment and wait till the process is over because they are unsure of what will happen. Then we have this winner-takes-all politics, which is more of a zero-sum game. If Party A wins, Party B knows that they have lost, and so that lost, winning and losing then underpins a lot of the things, the conduct that we see in our society. So over the time we have had, so I've talked about political transitions, and I've defined it as both regime change and a change in leadership. I'm not going to look at the regime change, which is the change that we had in 1992 from a military regime to a democratic regime. I'm going to focus on the transitions of leaders within the Fourth Republic. And we've had two main types of transitions within the Fourth Republic. What I will describe as major transitions and minor transitions. So major transitions involve a change in leadership from one political party, say from the NDC to the NPP, and minor transitions involve change in leadership. Sometimes we don't really change the personnel, but it's a change, an intra-party change. So a change within the same party, say NDC government, or just the NPP. So in 1996, we had a minor transition, which is a change in, we had political transitions, all right, but we re-elected the sitting president, who was President Rawlings, the late President Rawlings at the time. Then in 2005, we had another minor transition. We re-elected former President Kufuor. In 2013, we re-elected the NDC, though in 2013, the unique thing was that we lost our late President John Evans Atta Mills. So in 2013, even though it was a minor change, it wasn't like the 1996 and 2005, but we had a different leader, but the same party, and that too is a minor transition. Then in 2021, we had another minor transition where we re-elected the NPP government led by former President Nana Akufo-Addo. Then we've had four major transitions also. We've had 2001, where we had a change from the former President Rawlings to President Kufuor, and in 2009, from President Kufuor to former President Mills, the late, and in 2017, from President Mahama to former President Nana Akufo-Addo, and in 2025, from former President Nana Akufo-Addo to our current president. What we have seen is that in most of our transitions, it's usually an unsettling period. The period is fluid, and so the question I'm asking this evening is, how can we build trust in the process? How can we engage with the process to deepen bipartisanship? And to answer this, I'll focus mostly on the major transitions, which involve different parties, because they tend to be more acrimonious, and it's more like a finger-biting moment for all of us, whether it's going to happen as we expect it to happen or not. So I'm going to read some newspaper headlines, and I would want you to think whether this is 2001, or this is 2009, or this is 2016, 2017, or it's 2024, 2025. So the first one says, NDC activist car set ablaze. NPP and NDC supporters clash. NPP still living in fear. NDC, NPP in violent clash. Chief Imam calls for calm ahead of EC declaration. Exercise restraint, police administration urges public. No seizure of public toilets. We are worried, Mr. President. The Chief Imam congratulates Mahama, decries post-election violence. Do you think this belongs to just 1 year or several years? Several years, but the headlines are similar. So it means that the difficulties that we have during transition periods are repetitive, and it keeps going round. It's like we are in this cycle. Once it's an election year and it's going to involve a major transition, there is what some describe as fear and panic. People are wondering what's going to happen. And these things, seizure of public toilets, and what we've had recently is party sympathizers and foot soldiers storming government offices, trying to take over positions that they are not supposed to take over. So we ask ourselves, how can this be stopped? How can this be changed? So what is trust? When we talk of trust, what is it? Trust means having confidence. In this case, we are talking of political institutions. So having confidence in political institutions. And trust in political institutions is crucial to consolidating our democracy, and it enhances perceptions of reliability. In a study by Bob Miller and Latterberg in 2021, they found out that in Ghana, our trust in the political institutions that we have is linked to our affiliation with our political party. So, the NDC, when they are in power, will trust the institutions that we have. They trust the police more, they trust all the other agencies more if they are in power. Then the opposition will trust those same institutions less. But when they are in power, they trust those same institutions more. So, in the recent by-election that we had, and the rerun of some elections, the opposition openly said they can't trust the police. And prior to the 2009 elections, the NDC at the time also said they couldn't trust the police to adequately protect them. At that time, they were in opposition. So we see this dichotomy where if you are in government, you trust the institutions. If you are out of government, you see the institutions and you look at them, as we say in popularly, you look at them two. You are not too sure if those institutions can protect you or not. Then bipartisanship. So when we talk of bipartisanship, we talk of cooperation, we talk of compromise, we talk of agreement between two rival political parties. And in our system, the major parties that we have is NDC, NPP. So when we talk of bipartisanship, then we are looking at situations where they can cooperate, they can agree, especially when it comes to transition periods. And trust and bipartisanship reinforce each other and are deepened through improved transparency, accountability, a situation where there is reduced winner-take-all politics, where we have a positive-sum game. Trust is deepened in such systems, and where there is no fear of being witch-hunted after you have taken some action, that someone will be chasing you in any form. Yesterday, the Honorable former Minister presented some lessons from Kenya, from the US, from Singapore, from China, to underpin some of the lessons that he proffered. Now, looking at the US in building trust and bipartisanship start the process early. They hold bipartisan meetings between the leading candidates and the incumbent. There are resources, office spaces, machines, equipment for these personnel to work. And in the UK, which I'll add today, the UK has a system of the shadow government, so transitions are less acrimonious, even in terms of selecting personnel to take over various government portfolio. And they also have a period which they describe as a period of sensitivity. In that period, government officials, the civil service is warned against, or cautioned, I should say, against undertaking certain activities that will make them look impartial or not neutral. Like what we've seen in our own transitions, we've had some midnight actions, like increasing salaries a few hours before you go out of office, or employing people, recruiting people in your final hours in office. So a period of sensitivity then puts a check on this, and it's published in their pre-election guidelines, that is in the UK, and so everyone is aware that during this period, we don't make some major policy decisions. Then we have also seen in our own system the importance of civil society organizations, especially when it comes to political transitions. We talk of the Center for Democratic Development, the Institute of Economic Affairs, IDEC, CODEO, WANEP. These institutions have been instrumental. And the National Peace Council, though it's a governmental institution, it's best mentioning, especially in transitions. And when we have very tense moments, they have helped in calming tensions. So with all the challenges we've had so far, we have taken steps. As a country, we've not just sat down and looked on without any concern. We have taken steps. So the Presidential Transitions Act is one of such steps, which was discussed yesterday. It was passed in 2012, amended in 2016. We've had the Vigilantism Act and other provisions to help smoothen our transition processes. Yet, our transitions and transitional periods are anything but peaceful, as we have seen with the ransacking of government offices by foot soldiers, the issue of government assets. Do you take the car after you are done with the 4 years, or do you take it after the 8 years? What happens to the bungalows? Do you still keep it after 1 year and release it, or you can keep it forever? These are questions which still bite us every time, even though we have these institutions in place. And the handing over notes, are they comprehensive enough or not? Who checks if these are comprehensive enough? Seeing that the Office of the Administrator General is the leader of that office is appointed by the government in office, the government that is supposed to prepare this handover notes. So we see a deep politicization of our processes so far. So how do we deepen trust and bipartisanship and deepen practice? Number one, my proposal is that we have to start with the parties. If trust is linked to one's party affiliation, such that if I'm NDC currently, I will see all governmental institutions trustworthy, reliable, and trust them, then we have to engage our political parties. We have to start from the parties and engage them to educate, engage with their members, their foot soldiers, so that we can prevent electoral violence, we can foster public confidence in our institutions. Because if we don't have confidence in our institutions, we tend to take things into our own hands and do things the way we see fit. In a democratic society with institutions, the rule of the might doesn't help, especially for those of us who are not too strong. Then, as part of deepening trust and bipartisanship, we have to conduct elections, electoral processes transparently to foster legitimacy and build confidence. Involve non-state actors in the process to deepen trust and bipartisanship. If it's just the two parties, sometimes they take entrenched positions. But involving non-state actors and other aspects in the process can help with this. And also fair reporting by the media can also help with this. Number two, which aligns with what the former minister spoke about yesterday, is to revise our transition processes. To begin, so the transition processes begin with the declaration of results, which is captured in our at 845. Now, could the processes of preparing handover notes, etc., begin probably from January, where we will have the administrative level processes begin and we start preparing the handover notes. And also introduce a period of sensitivity during which government officers, our administrators, our president cannot take certain decisions which have very dire consequences or of matters of financial implications for the next administration. We can introduce this period of sensitivity, let's say from 6 months. So in June of an election year, till the election, till the handing over inauguration, the sitting president cannot undertake certain decisions. And as seen in the US has what they call the Plum Book. The Plum Book publishes all the offices that the president needs to fill, or the politically appointive positions. Ghana combines aspects of the US and the UK in terms of administrative offices, the civil service. So we have the political appointees, and we also have the career path civil servants. So let's maintain this divide and create this book, a sort of institution that says, when you are president-elect, know that these are the offices you can fill. These other offices you cannot fill. So there are some offices, especially in the civil service, which is supposed to be filled by career path personnel. But we have seen that our presidents have extended their appointive powers to those offices also. Sometimes director generals or chief executives are asked to proceed on leave, and through certain processes, they are replaced. But there are processes within the civil service to do some of these things. So we should allow those processes to work. And in line with allowing, creating this line between political offices and civil service, the civil service offices, the career offices. Yesterday, we talked about the NDPC, and we mentioned that the NDPC is staffed by individuals who are appointed by the president, someone in consultation with the Council of State, etc., and so there is partisanship. But going beyond that, we also have to look at the provision in Article 36, Clause 5, that says any government that comes within 2 years must prepare a program of activities, which is their plan of activities for the country to cover agric, economic, the social sector, etc. It means that any government that comes will have their own plan, and that is constitutional. But that also implies that if NDC comes in 4 years and they have the Better Ghana agenda, and after 8 years they are not done with the Better Ghana agenda, and we vote them out, and we elect the MPP, they come with the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda. And so the Better Ghana agenda is thrown off, and we take on the new agenda. As a country that wants to develop, this doesn't help us because we invest a lot in one agenda, and after 8 years, which is a very short time, we throw it away and go for a new agenda. And so we have a lot of hanging projects which have not been allowed to conclude logically for us to reap the benefits of those projects. The number 3 pathway to peaceful transition is broadly captured under legal reforms and safeguards. Now, for us to transition so that we have enough time, we have to revise the electoral calendar, as mentioned yesterday. I want to cite the example of 2009 when we had the 10 elections. We had a runoff on 28th December 2008. There were delays in the 10 constituency, and so elections were not held, and it was scheduled for 2nd January. Inauguration is 7th January. So we see how close this is. We held the election on 2nd January, and within 5 days, we have to do the inauguration. That gives us less time, even for those who are jubilating, to come down for the inauguration. So I would want to reiterate the call by the former minister, and others have also talked about this, that we should revise our electoral calendar, move it probably to October as he proposed, or even to November, to give us some time so that we can have a good transition process where we can have deliberations, etc. The other thing under the legal reforms, which I'm proposing, is for us to institutionalize the Inter-Party Advisory Committee, the IPAC. As it stands now, it's an advisory committee. What it says can be accepted or not accepted. But let's give it a legal mandate. Let's equip it, say that this institution will include the parties, it will also include experts, and give it the role that you, after every election, you do an evaluation, draw lessons, provide directions for the next election. They will help the EC, instead of, it seems there is this acrimony between the IPAC, the EC. Instead of that being the case, they will be partners in helping the electoral process go smoothly. Number 3, under the legal reforms, is to strengthen the laws protecting election officials and the processes, and the laws against electoral offenses and vigilante activity must be enforced promptly. We have to punish offenders promptly so that others can see that if you do A or if you are not supposed to do A and you do it, there are sanctions, there are penalties to be paid. Number 4 under legal reforms is a proposal for an electoral system reform. So currently we have a majoritarian system where if the president secures 50% of the votes, we say +1, or let's say 51%, he wins the election. At the parliamentary level, it's a simple majority. So if 5 of us are contesting and one person gets 25% of the votes, the others 18, 19, the 25% candidate wins the election. This majoritarian system tends to encourage violence, so you want to do all it takes to win the election. And this has underpinned some of the statements by some of our leaders, like all die be die, we'll match them boot for boot. It's a do or die affair. Because it tends to be these two poles, you are either winning or you are losing. And who likes to lose? We all want to win. So whatever it will take to win, our politicians, our leaders, we are all willing to do it. So let's move from the majoritarian system to a proportional representation system, which has also been proposed by IDEC. Now, the proportional representation system encourages representation even of minority groups. So even the smaller parties, now they are collapsing. I grew up seeing the great consolidated party. At our time, we had the Dakon's party, which we call Akoko Dako at the time. All those parties, because of this majoritarian system, has collapsed. The majoritarian system seems to promote the two-party system, where you have two dominant parties. So when we have the proportional representation, it can even help us to meet the target of our Affirmative Action Act, where we want to increase the representation of women in leadership positions, because then the parties will have to populate their list with both genders on the list. So that helps us. Then we can also have people with disability represented in our parliament and in various offices. So let's move away from the majoritarian system, which seemed to lead us to do everything it takes to win, to a proportional representation that I think will reduce the acrimony and the violence that is related to our political transition processes. Key to building trust is civic education. We have to invest. I learned that the NCC is one of the poorest governmental agencies. We have to invest in the NCC because civic education is critical to consolidating democracy. How do we imbibe the democratic norms? How do we build the values? People, we all have to learn this, learn about the Constitution. There are students who come to our lectures and you ask them about politics in Ghana. Who was Ghana's first president? When was he overthrown? What happened? Some of them have no idea of this. So if we don't invest in civic education, democracy is very important, but it's also very expensive. We have to invest in education so that we will all learn and imbibe some of the democratic norms. We have to focus on electoral integrity and peaceful transfer of power in these education forums. And we have to also openly discuss avenues where citizens can address challenges. If during election I have a concern, where should I go? This should be openly discussed so that we don't vent our frustration by carrying the ballot box away. And this should be advertised and made so common that everyone knows. Even the child today knows that if this is the case, you call this number or you go to this office and your concern will be addressed. So the legal reforms complemented by the civic education will help us to transform our political culture, to help us erode this winner-takes-all politics, party polarization that undermines the spirit of democratic transition. And it will also build in us the belief that the transition is not the end of everything. So if you have lost today, you leave to fight again and come back into office. It's continuity of the Fourth Republic. We've just changed the leaders, but everything else continues. And our allegiance must first be to the country and not to our parties. Then we must also enforce media regulation, ethical standards, responsible journalism. And the enforcement of media regulation, it's not to curb media freedom, but to ensure that responsible journalism takes precedent. So now we have social media, and a lot of things are going on there, which unfortunately cannot be really controlled, or it cannot be managed by the commission, the media, National Media Commission. But our traditional media can set the good example in responsible journalism. And as we talked of responsible journalism, journalists must also be protected, especially during transition periods, because we have seen some journalists attacked when they were engaged in covering electoral activities. Finally, we must internalize monitoring and evaluation, track early warning signs for violence, know that these areas are volatile, and deploy security forces there to help manage the situation. And we also need a bipartisan committee of a sort for transition monitoring and evaluation. And I will propose that the IPAC can do this if they are equipped, not only the two parties, but we also have some experts and some civil societies to play this monitoring and evaluation role, especially during the election period. And we must also institutionalize public briefings, transition briefings, so that we are not wondering what is going on. Is the former president handing over to the president-elect, or they are going are they doing it well? Is everything? So when we hold briefings in transparency, people are aware that things are going on well. You don't need to go to the Jubilee House to go and enforce anything. Be where you are, because the institutions can handle everything going on. So, we have been talking about how to promote peaceful transitions. One thing that we have emphasized is that Ghana has come far. We've done well, both from the minimalist perspective of democratic consolidation and from the maximalist perspective of democratic consolidation. But we still have challenges. And to talk about these challenges, to deal with these challenges, we have to make some changes. We have to start with planning our transition processes early. Let's say a year to the elections, we have to engage in some legal reforms, hold our elections early, move away from the majoritarian system to a proportional representation system, engage in civic education, pursue data-driven monitoring and evaluation, and call for patriotism and public interest mindset in our civic education. Thank you so much for your attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think Rosina needs another applause. While sitting here and listening to Rosina's exposition, an idea just came through my mind to ask a question. And that question is, why does the academy involve itself in going through all of these kinds of topics? And when you check the background of the establishment of the academy has a major role in this country to provide thought on development of policy, and policy that actually directs development. So when we talk about navigating political transition, it's something that all of us have observed. Not very long ago, just under 1 year, we went through the process. Now, this evening, our speaker has actually taken us through a historical view of Ghana's democratic journey since the inception of the Fourth Republic in 1993. And we all would say that to a very large extent, we have had relatively peaceful electoral transitions and also a still growing institutional maturity. When I talk of still growing institutional maturity, I'm referring to all those organizations that are responsible for managing the electoral process within the country. Now, one thing that has worried this country is the persistent challenges such as political vigilantism, which Rosina made reference to, institutional distrust, which is prevalent. When I am in power, I don't trust the opposition. When you go into opposition, you don't trust the one in power. And then the idea of winner takes all. I mean, these are some of the things that we have been talking about all the time. Now, what Rosina has done is to help us look at the mechanisms through which Ghana can deepen trust, that Ghana can enhance institutional practice and foster bipartisanship so that we can consolidate democratic gains. Now, in bringing up all of this to our attention, she has referred to a pathway. A pathway is usually something like a path which directs you towards a destination. And she has listed 6 of these. Now, if we want to take these 6 pathways, which she listed as trust and bipartisanship, revised transition planning, legal reforms, civic education, media regulation, and then monitoring and evaluation. In other words, looking backwards to see whether the path that you are on is the path that you decided to tread on. Now, with all of this as background for us, the issue is, to what extent are we going to be able to achieve these? And let me tell, and I'm saying this for the for the benefit of our young people. The academy is not a talk shop. The academy is made up of people who think deep into issues that go into the fabric of the development of this country. And when we organize such lectures, what we are actually saying to the world through this medium that I'm using, that we are still present, we are available, and we want to be consulted as much as possible. So what I want to say, and in fact, today, unfortunately, because the students have to get back to school early, we are not going to follow yesterday's pattern where we invited questions from the floor. This is because most of the things that have been said are known to everybody. I mean, you are not going to ask Rosina to tell you why do we have vigilantism. She cannot tell you that. But through her analysis, gradual analysis, observation, she is telling us that these are the things that are happening. I am in the hands of the fellows. And so what I would like to do is, since my senior fellows are saying, and I believe it's also supported by a large number of fellows, and also with the students, I just want to invite only a first round of questions, just a first round, made up of five questionnaires. Just 5. So that we can close early. I would like the students to get back home on time. So we will open the floor. If I see your hand, I'll ask you, but I will count 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 4. Is there a 5th person? And 5. These are, you are the ones that are going to ask your questions or make comments. So, number 1, sir.
Thank you for accepting my suggestion that we should ask questions. Yesterday, the chairperson wanted me to ask a question and I turned it down. Today, I have got up to ask a question myself. Mine is partly a question and partly a statement. The speaker kept talking about Fourth Republic, implying that we've had a first, a second, a third, and a fourth. I get concerned about reference to these so-called different republics. Ghana became a republic on July 1st, 1960. On that day, the eminent former Supreme Court judge here and we had about 2 more papers to take to finish our O-level. Those of you who know O-level and A-level, it shows how long we have been around. Now, if you talk about First Republic, Second Republic, Third Republic, they are all referring to times when we had civilian rule. But we've had military rules. So are you trying to imply that when Achampong was there, or Afrifa was there, or Kotoka was there, or Akufu was there, or Rawlings was there, what was this country? Was it not a republic? So that's my question, attached to my statement about Fourth Republic, Third Republic, Second Republic. It gets me very worried. We've been a republic since 1960, and that's it.
My question is about the proposal for proportional representation. As you know, culture is very transformative. In other words, it plays an important role in political activity. And we've always had first past the post since independence. It's a very long time. So it's a culturally heavily ingrained practice. Now, if one were to change to proportional representation and looking at the countries which have it, it can lead to long periods of negotiation between contesting parties to reach a consensus. Now that conduct of seeking a compromise to form a government is completely non-existent in our history. So have you considered the risk of paralysis in the wake of proportional representation?
I am Oforo Jeffrey, Accra Academy. Thank you, Honorable Chair, for this opportunity. Before my question, I would like to say this briefly. Early this year, some sympathizers of the ruling government were complaining and wondering why the former IGP, Dr. Akufo Dampare, was still in office, even though the regime that appointed him has come to an end. So now, Dr. Rosina, my question. Would you recommend that the appointment of heads of security agencies should be done as that of the Chief Justice to minimize mistrust? Thank you.
Excuse me, could you please take your question again?
I wish that you move the microphone slightly away from your mouth so we can hear. And then please mention your name and
Please.
which school.
Okay. Please, I'm Oforo Jeffrey from Accra Academy. Please, before my question, early this year, some sympathizers of the ruling government were wondering and complaining why Dr. Akufo Dampare, the former IGP, was still in office, even though the regime that appointed him has come to an end. So, Dr. Rosina, would you recommend that the appointment of heads of security agencies should be done as that of the Chief Justice to minimize mistrust? Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Emmanuel Frempo, and I want to ask that, can political transition be from a democratic rule to a military rule? Since the political transition you are talking about is to bring development, and if the democratic rule isn't bringing any development and the military rule promises to bring development, should we accept it? Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask this question. My question is similar to his question. So my question is about the proportional representative. So talking about that, for the proportional representative, the political parties will be represented in either parliament or wherever they'll be represented. So during that representative, during decision makings, I feel like because all those political parties are there, they will oppose each other, causing delays in decision makings. So I feel this is a very huge disadvantage, which will retard development. So yeah, that's my question.
Thank you very much. We have 5 questions. 2 of them are quite similar. So I would like to invite our speaker to respond to those questions.
Thank you so much, Prof. Chair. So the first question is on why we refer to the Fourth Republic. Why we refer to Fourth Republic, Second, etc. So I would say that usually this has to do with the constitutional overturn and being overturned whenever we say, okay, so the first republic, then the second, because the first Republican Constitution was overturned. So that marked the end of that. Then during the military regime, usually we don't have a constitution as we have in the second or the other Republican system. Well, we have been a republic since 1960, as Prof said, and that is correct. But along the way, on this journey, we have had some incursions here and there. We have to go back and come and correct it. And we have come. So when the Constitution is overturned, that marks the end of that first trial, and we come back again and try again. I've seen him shaking his head, but but once the Constitution is overturned and we don't go back to that same Constitution, then this becomes the point where the new republic, but our status as having become a republic in 1960 doesn't change. The second question is on the proposal for proportional representation. The question is about if we have considered the risks associated with it, which is similar to the last question, so I'll address the two together. Yes, we have been practicing the majoritarian system for a very, very long time. And the results we want, we are not getting it. So let's try something else. If you want to go there, and you are walking and you are not getting there, and probably you should take a different path and see if that will help you to get to where you are going. So even though we have had the majoritarian system all through our history, political history, because we want things to be done differently, because we want new results, we should try the proportional representation and see if that can help us attain the results we want. Yes, we have to negotiate. We have to build consensus. That is where bipartisanship comes in, which is what we are talking about today. Because if we want to develop and we are taking entrenched positions as a developing country, we cannot get to that level. We will still have our young men and women crossing the desert, undertaking very dangerous trips just to make it elsewhere. But to be able to develop and keep our human resource here and for the country to get to where it wants to get to, we have to develop this bipartisan. We have to get talking. We have to negotiate. So I think that let's try it. We want to attain some level of development. We want to get to some place. And we have been doing things the same way, and we are not getting the results. So let's try the proportional representation, and hopefully that may give us the results we want. Then in terms of the appointment, so with appointment, there have been studies that decry the excessive powers that the executive has in appointing almost everybody. And so, if someone like the IGP, in his position, or if it's in her position, can be allowed to remain in office even across different regimes. Some of these institutions should not be subjected to political appointment. For instance, the head of the NDPC that plans for this country, that helps in developing plans for this country, should not be subjected to political appointment. Party A comes, you are kicked out, another person comes in, Party B comes. So this perception of distrust of the institutions stem from the political appointment of the personnel of those institutions. So if a new president comes and the leader of, or the head of the police service is changed, the head of the military service is changed, the head of the civil service is changed, then we sit back and we look at those. So if I belong to the opposition, I look at those institutions, I don't trust them because they were appointed by a party that I don't belong to. So let's curb some of these powers and allow the institutions that are public agencies, etc., to remain neutral and serve across different party governments so that we can build the trust that we want to engender within our system. Then the fourth is whether we can have a transition from military rule to democratic rule, if, or the other way, from democracy to the military, if the military will help us. Well, political transitions can go either way, but from our history, what we have seen, the experience we have had with our democratic regimes, I'm not sure any of us would want to go back to a military regime from where we have reached now. So your question, conceptually, we can have transitions both ways. But from Ghana's historical experience and records, I wouldn't pray that we'll go back to a military regime, and I don't think we want to transit politically to a military regime. Let's still have the transitions we are having currently, from NDC to MPP, MPP to another party. Hopefully, there will be other parties coming in. But let's do it that way, rather than go to the military system. Thank you so much.
I have been checking faces. I've been looking at faces, and I recognize that there are a few more people who would like to ask one or two questions. So I'm going to give the floor to just the first two that I can see. I've seen number one here. Is there any from, okay, so one. Can I see your hand properly over there? Okay. All right. Yes. So, please give Prof. Oteng-Yeboah. Number one is here. Here. Here.
Thank you very much. I wasn't going to ask a question, but I was provoked by the speaker's response to the young person. As you very well know, you work in the area. Afrobarometer results are showing that younger people do not mind that kind of transition. So I think we need to address the question that, yes, the people were doing their O or A level in 1960 and go. We know what we know. But there are many younger people here who are seduced by the trolls on social media telling them about the great things that are happening in our sub-region, to wit, our neighbor to the north, even though the evidence on our streets contradict it. Why would you leave your country to come to Ghana if they are opening new housing estates, if things are so good there? So I think that we need to demonstrate why that transition, that historically, how the development that we think comes with military rule has not happened. It's a myth. So we need to show them, because yes, we wish it will not happen, but they haven't lived through. So what response are you going to give to them when they say that they don't mind this other transition? Thank you.
My name is Philip de Graft from Accra. And my question for Dr. Rosina is, do you suggest that creating a transition team comprising of both people from the majority part of, let's say, when it comes to parliament, the majority part of parliament and minority part is a good idea? Do you suggest it's a very good idea, or there is an idea better than that?
You make a comment on the comment made by Professor Techuame.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Prof. Chair. And thanks so much, Professor Techuame. I really like that comment. So I'll start with the transition team, then I will end with your comment. So for the Transition Act that we have currently, it recommends that the transition team comprises members from both outgoing and incoming parties, the president, government. So if we are going to comprise transition team from the majority side in parliament and minority side in parliament, I think that will build bipartisanship, where they will have to work together to help ease or smoothen our transition processes. So I think it's a good thing. Okay? All right. And it aligns also with the act that has been formulated. Now, coming back to the issue of political transition from democratic rule to a military rule, and like Professor Techuame rightly stated, now those who prefer or would want Ghana to be democratic, the percentage is reducing. Previously, it was around 80%. Now it's coming to 70-something. And it's reducing. Sometimes 0.05. But it's reducing. And that must be of concern to all of us, especially because we are seeing, now you read and Burkina Faso, they are doing this. These people are doing this, and you wonder, why are leaders not doing the same thing? What are we doing in a democracy, right, when we can get all these things from a military regime? But from Ghana's history, we've had several military regimes. And military regimes, so the first time we had a military takeover was in 1966. And these regimes, 1966, 1972, 78, a palace school, 1981, when the PNDC came in, they all promised to make our country better. In fact, one of the reasons why they take over from their own report, or what they say in response to why they engage in the coup, is that the conditions are hard in the country and they want to make things better. But after all the trials we've had, things didn't get better. Rather, it got deteriorated. So under military regime, when you flout any of their regulations, you don't have what is called rights that we have now. You can talk of rights. I have the right to this. I have the right to that. Even in our schools, we want to promote our rights. In a military regime, there are abuses. It's a one-man rule or a panel, a council, committee rule. And what is said is final. So it may seem that things are going on well in military regimes currently, but that is not so. It's better to be in a democracy. So it is said that democracy is the least worst form of government. Least worst means that there are other ones that are worse. Yes, someone says worser. Yes. And democracy, even though with all its problems, is still better than being in a military regime. So you may not have experienced it, but there are people who have experienced it, and it's not a very good system to be in. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rosina Foli. Ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that the lecturer or the speaker has actually provided us with a lot of knowledge. And I'm actually very happy that we got through the insistence from my senior colleague, we got 4 of our young people to ask questions and make comments. Now, you are at the moment representing the generation which we refer to as Gen Z. There's another one which is Gen C. So you being here and listening to why we should provide opportunities to make our political transitions better, please discard from your mind any idea of a military transition. Because some of us have actually been through that and we know what it is. What we are practicing now is good, but we have to work out, and make things work for the better of the country so that all citizens will make benefit or gain benefit from whatever is there as a national resource for the development of our country. So I would like us now to join me to say a big thank you to Rosina and to do an applause, which is, I think, is it a square applause or a round of applause? A round one. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our chairperson. And we are gradually almost at the end of the program. I would like to acknowledge the support provided by our own Vice President of the Republic, Professor Nana Jean Opoku-Agyeman, for this Founders Day program, a fellow also of the Academy. As always, we would like to acknowledge the presence of Accra Academy Senior High School. And then Presbyterian Boys Senior High School, Presbyterian. Right. We always acknowledge and appreciate your presence, and as we can all attest, this has been a very interesting learning experience for all of us. There will be a presentation to the speaker from the Academy, so may I kindly request our chair to do that on our behalf. Thank you.
Rosina, the Academy is very proud for accepting to give this particular lecture. And on behalf of the Academy, I have something here. Nobody knows what is in it, but that is for you to show our appreciation for the kind work that you have done. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Just one more announcement to remind all of us that there will be light refreshment in the foyer. And as always, our young colleagues from Presec and Akraka, you have yours on the way so you can get back to your campuses in time. Thank you very much. We are almost at the end of the program. I would also like to say let's appreciate our chair for steering this program. Yes, and for the 66th Founders Day program, today is the third of 4-day program, so we have outstanding tomorrow. The climax of the program being the delivery of the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Lecture. We have a distinguished speaker for the program, and you wouldn't want to miss this. So, on behalf of the Academy, I extend invitation to all of us to be here tomorrow for the program. May I kindly ask that we be upstanding as the speaker exits the podium. Have a good night.